And now, let's join Maggie Linton on SiriusXM Urban View.
Well, welcome back. Tomorrow, award-winning actress, singer, writer, and director Rosario Dawson will chat about her new film with Chris Rock. Saw it last night, folks. We're going to be talking about it. It is Top 5. Plus, three-time Tour de France champion Greg LeMond and Dr. Mark Hom with their book, The Science of Fitness. But we continue right now with my friend, fitness expert, motivational speaker, and author Carl Powell. His new book is Recipes for Magnificent Living, Friends, Food, and Philosophy. And he's here with a friend, Lou Olatosin, and known as Sweet Lou.
Sweet Lou, yeah.
And so, it's just an emphasis on friendship,
yeah.
And how important that is. And how often is food part of the friendship?
Well, I think what's important to realize is that from the beginning of time, people used to sit down and commune together and eat together. And then we got into this busy life of internet and people running and people were eating in their cars and they're not really making eye contact with people. They're texting. You see people in restaurants texting while they're sitting there eating together.
Instead of talking.
Yep. And for me, what happened was I started cooking with a friend. And that became so much fun in the summertime. She had a garden and she started bringing me things from the garden. And we were like, what can you make out of this? What can you make out of that? And she made tomato soup. And I took the tomato soup and I made chili out of it. And we started thinking, okay, let's think all the things that our friends all around the world make, and let's take them into the book. So what I wrote out on Facebook was, send me your favorite recipe and your favorite quote. And people came back and they were like, does it have to be a healthy recipe? And I said, absolutely not, because nobody wants to eat healthy all the time.
That's right.
And so what happened in writing the book, I learned so much about my friends because there were so many people I was disconnected to. I called them my friends, but I hadn't talked to them in forever. Mm-hmm. And then they sent me a recipe, and I didn't know if it was 1 cup or 2 cups, or should I put the oil in before or after? So I had to actually call them, which I hadn't done for years. So all of a sudden, I was calling up all of my friends, and I was getting all these texts and emails and Facebook messages. And I was like, gee, this is what friendship is really about. Mm-hmm. And so for me, this has been such an act of love, because I've got to love the food. I got to love the recipes. I got to eat a whole lot of food. Actually lost 14 pounds in the process. And then I got in contact with friends I hadn't talked to in years and years and years. So. Yeah.
And so you just moved it along. So did Lou add a recipe?
Lou's wife added a recipe.
There you go. All right, Lou, let's talk about that recipe.
Well, it's the chocolate cake, is it?
No, it's the cookies.
Oh, the cookies, yes. This is a perennial favorite every year.
Old family recipe?
I don't know how much of a family recipe it is, but it's one of those half-healthy, more delicious kind of recipes. She makes them every year for, I don't know how many dozens of cookies my wife makes. It's honey, nuts, oatmeal,
peanut powder, protein powder. So it is a healthy cookie, but it's also a very good cookie. But what's funny is that Kathy starts just about Thanksgiving getting the ingredients for her cookies. And so all year long we talk about how everything is in a season. And when we get to Thanksgiving, I know it's time for Kathy to start talking about her cookies. Yep. And I think it's really important to know those things about your friends. So I know what she does at Christmas time, and she knows what I make at Christmas time. And everyone knows that from Thanksgiving until the beginning of the year, I take out my fryer and I will fry anything that I can get my hands on. So don't come to my house unless you might plan on getting fried.
Well, just a week or so ago, I had fried turkey from you.
Oh, you did have my fried turkey.
Yes, it was delicious. Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that, because it cooks so quickly, it's really pretty lean, but it's also very moist.
Yeah, very low in fat. And what happens with the fried turkey is it cooks on the inside and the out, because the inside of the turkey is empty. And so it cooks much quicker, and the juice of the turkey stays in there, and it's just succulent. It's like, I love fried turkey. I look forward to Thanksgiving just so I can get the fryer out and do that.
Yeah, and there's a technique behind that, too.
Without burning down the house. We've all seen those videos on the internet.
And wonder, what were they thinking? Yeah, my brother-in-law does it, and the whole idea is to make sure that there's no not too much moisture, like water or anything like that, on that turkey. You got to dry him out before you drop him in there.
Right, exactly, because anything that's wet will make the oil pop.
Yeah, definitely. So, all right, let's. You decided to put it together. We mentioned food. We mentioned friendship. Philosophy.
So what I did was I asked my friends, what is your favorite quote? How do you see life? Mm-hmm. And everyone sent me their philosophy of life. And so with each and every recipe, you get to know who the person is. For example, one of the recipes is done by a woman who I did a photography session for when I lived in Germany. But I put a picture of the photography session in, so you got to see how I knew her, what our relationship was about. I put her favorite quote. And then I try to promote all my friends' businesses also, because I think that's very important. What happens with a lot of people when you get in business is people become very competitive. And I think it's very, very important to support your friends in that way. And that's why Sweet Lou is here, because Sweet Lou just released a brand new CD. And CDs and cookbooks make excellent Christmas presents. I had to make sure I got that in there.
and what's the title of the CD?
Sweet Lou's Blues. It's a jazz CD, and the title cut, Sweet Lou's Blues, is actually made for and dedicated to Sweet Papa Lou Donaldson, the jazz titan.
Yeah, Lou Donaldson.
And I sent him a copy of it, and I actually saw him when he was at the Kennedy Center just a month or so ago, and had a chance to chat with him just a brief bit. I met him several times throughout the years, but he was really the driving force, because we wanted to make songs that actually spoke to what jazz is really all about. And he was such a titan in that he was a pioneer, if you will. People like John Coltrane, Miles Davis used to call him so he could get gigs for them. You know, so that's the level of player he is. And he's still very active in the jazz community, still at, I think, 88 years old.
I was going to say, he's got to be up in there somewhere. He's got to be beyond the 70s on into the 80s. Huh? This looks like he's pressing into the 90s there. That's great.
And still doing very well. In fact, his show, he's still really playing well. And you have to wonder, what is it that gives someone that much energy at that ripe age, and you still love what you're doing and you're still good at it? You know, so
I think you just answered it, because if you love what
you're doing, you're not really working.
Yeah, you're not really working, and that's what I love about what I do. Is I always feel like I have the blessed life, because I never feel like I'm at work. I always feel like I'm at peace, and then people just come to me and bring me joy. So my clients think that I'm bringing them joy, but they don't know they're my psychiatrist. They come in and they tell me all the stories I need to know. So there's nothing that I miss in the world, because I love what I do, and then because I love what I do, everyone feels that, and they bring that back to you. And I think that's what this. I love friendship. I call myself a friend collector. I have more friends than anyone in the whole world, I hope.
A true give and take.
Yeah. But I think when you treat your friends well, and you treat them with respect, and you're always supportive of them, it reverberates. And what I love is that, for example, I took your wife to Hawaii in September to meet another one of my best friends, and
Hello, good friend over here. You didn't invite me to Hawaii. What's up with that?
You get to come when I move there.
Oh,
so.
yeah, okay. Yeah. Come then, huh?
Yeah. But Kathy and Claudia, they've both been my friends 30 years. They had never met. But the day that they met, immediately, they loved each other. And that's just the thing. My friends all love each other. I have my friends, I call them layers of friends. They meet, and then they know each other. And I love being the nucleus. I just love being that center link that holds the whole piece together. So I think that's my God-given role.
Centerpiece, huh?
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, we'll be back with the centerpiece and friend when we come back. So stay tuned as we continue with more good food and friends. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back with more conversation about today's hottest topics right after this short break. This is the Maggie Linton Show on Sirius XM Urban View. Great conversations continue now on The Maggie Linton Show.
Well, welcome back. We continue with fitness expert, motivational speaker, and author Carl Powell. His new book is Recipes for Magnificent Living, Friends, Food, and Philosophy. Also joining him is friend Lou Olatosin, known as Sweet Lou. And he's here. And I should say, Carl has been on before when he had his book out, 21 Steps to Magnificent Living. You just believe in that magnificent, don't you?
Well, I think
philosophy.
I think life is magnificent if you look at it that way. And I think what the point of my books is living. because there are a lot of people that are alive but they're not living. And living, that's the essence of why we are here. To grow, to love, to eat, to breathe, to move, to do all of those things. But there are so many people that are just docile. They actually don't dive into living. So for me, the 21 Steps to Magnificent Living was my dive into living, learning how to be responsible for the things that happen in my world, learning how to love the things even when I don't love them. Learning how to be forgiving with myself and with others, being my personal best at all times. Those were life lessons. And when I got those life lessons, I realized that the only way that I got those lessons was by living them. So I didn't learn that resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die until I died inside myself and realized I'm poisoning myself with this. Learning how to respect and love where you came from. Because there's so many people that try to pretend to be something that they're not. And I always tell them that don't judge everything by every single movement. Because life is not about every single movement. It is about the culmination of the movements.
The whole.
The whole, right? So when you're looking at life as a whole, then this can't be the worst thing that ever happened to you. Right. This can't be the worst day of your life. And you don't even know that yet because you haven't lived your whole life yet. So I tell people, when you get to living, you're present. And when you're present, you notice everything that happens around you. And that's where I want to be. I want to be in that place where I'm present, where I feel the love coming right across the table, sitting there looking right in your eye. And it's not anything but what I know from here, from my heart, from the center of my soul. So,
wow, that's deep. Yeah. You really make some valid points, especially about being in the moment and taking every day for what it is and the whole as opposed to the parts of the whole.
Right.
Very, very prudent comments. And I think it's important for us to get to that point where we are looking at life that way.
And because way too often people want to blame something that happened a long time ago as to why they are failing now. And it's like, let it go. I always say, get the rollers on the suitcase and let go of that suitcase and move along, because it's like dragging a suitcase around with you that has no rollers on it. You're carrying all the baggage from the past. If you can't change the past, we can't even go back and get the last 2 minutes.
Exactly right.
We're done with those.
Yes.
So you've got to move forward, and way too many people do not. They spend their time wallowing, and that's what you want them to do. You want them to move forward. And you've given them a couple of good examples of the magnificence of life.
Yeah. And I think I like to be the example. So for me, I'm always moving forward. If anyone who knows me, Carl is always moving forward. And I have my setbacks and my disappointments just like everybody else. But I don't let the lumps and bumps stop me from living. There are so many people that get a lump and they're like, okay, now I'm just going to sit in the corner and stop living until I recover or until I heal. We don't have time to heal. This is the moment. What do you mean you're just going to sit in the corner? I have no time to sit in the corner. Right now I'm on the move again. I'm getting ready to move to Hawaii.
You're ready to say aloha to all of us right. here on the mainland and moving back to Hawaii.
Yeah, and it's about living, because I realized when I went there to work in September, this is the way I love to live. This is the way that I love to feel.
And as it gets colder here, you realize how much more you want to live over there, right?
Every single moment in the wintertime. But I love the no traffic, the no stress thing. It really allows you to breathe and live. Living in that sense of aloha where everyone's welcome, because everyone's on vacation, so they're in a good mood. So, and you're happy because you're making a little bit of money, you're warm, you have no complaints. So that aloha thing is so authentic. It permeates the island, and it's so beautiful because you're always breathing. You're always aware. 1 minute is sunshine, 1 minute it rains, 2 seconds later there's a double rainbow, and it just continues, and it just happens over and over and over again, and you can't help but be present.
I saw more double rainbows in the week that I was there about 10 years ago than I have in my, I've seen 1 or 2 others,
right?
But that week I saw like 3.
Right.
That's got to be a thing that's going on in Hawaii that isn't going on in many other places.
Yeah, it just happens, and it's just so beautiful. You're sitting at the ocean and a whale just jumps up. There's just so many things that just go, Wow, look at that. Wow, look at the ocean. Wow, look at the mountains. I love December and you're taking a walk and you're like, look at all the flowers and, the fruit that's growing. And I remember in December, I grew bananas on my back porch and I was so happy with myself, even though the bananas actually grew themselves. I went out and talked to them every day, like encouraging them to be bananas, like grow up for me. But it's just such a beautiful thing, and it's like that all the time. And I think that that's where we should always be in our heart and in our mind, even if we're not there in our physical being.
Yeah, and you've lived all over the world, so you know.
Yeah, and I've lived in really wonderful places, and I tell people life is only situational. It's not where you are; it's your personal situation, because you can be happy anywhere, and you can be miserable anywhere.
True.
So it's all about what you carry with you. And I refuse to carry negative words, negative thoughts, and negative feelings in my mind, body, or my spirit. So it's learning how to drop those things off. And that's why I spend my time trying to keep other people's relationships together. I love the whole personal training thing and keeping people's relationships with themselves together. Because when you can love from here, you can love anywhere. But when you can't love yourself, when you're sitting there in self-doubt, when you're sitting there staring at yourself in the mirror saying, I could lose 5 more pounds, and if I don't lose 5 more pounds, I don't love myself, which means no one else can love me, you've already committed yourself to a life of no love.
Yeah.
So when you really learn how to love yourself, fat, skinny, bald, black, with cancer, whatever it is, when you can love yourself that way, then you can love yourself anyway.
You're moving in the right direction. Right. Yeah. Sweet Lou, how did you meet Carl?
Actually, through my wife.
The personal trainer.
The personal trainer.
Let's give her a little applause. And cookie maker.
Kathy Murray, hello.
And excellent at all of it, might I add.
You better have said that.
But Kathy introduced me maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Actually, when our relationship was just beginning.
Yeah, it was really cute. Kathy and Lou had just met. They were on their second date. And Kathy came here because Lou's stationed here. He's in the military. So he was stationed here. Kathy came here to meet Lou. So I take her up to meet him, and then I drop her off. And when I come back to pick her up, I knew it was over with. They both walked up to my car, and they both were completely dressed in white. And I said, does this look like a wedding picture or what? And 3 years later, it was a wedding picture. So I love Lou because he's made my best friend happier than I've ever seen her in the 35 years I've known her. So it's a beautiful thing.
That is a beautiful thing.
It is.
Yeah, and Lou's very happy because now you're getting ready to start your new career. Once again, we're talking with Carl Powell. He is a motivational speaker, fitness expert, and author. His book is Recipes for Magnificent Living, Friends, Food, and Philosophy, and his friend Lou Olastosin, Sweet Lou.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about your career and how you got into singing.
Well, career-wise, I'll just go ahead and put it out there. I'm retiring from the Army after 35 years of service. I'm really looking forward to it. But the one thing that I've always had, no matter what career I was focused on, was my music. I've always sang, came up in a family of singers, gospel and otherwise. And I began singing, doing kind of my own thing in the R&B world and jazz world back probably when I was in high school. Something I kind of stayed with. I got real serious about it sometime during some military productions and just began to kind of let it take me where it was going to go. Fortunately, once I got a little older and really kind of focused in on the jazz piece of it, I met some great players and we started doing some gigs around town, formed a quintet at the time, and released my first CD back in 2010, just prior to coming to D.C. Did pretty well on it. Actually, it charted on the jazz charts in 2011.
Well, my listeners know how much I love jazz, so there's no doubt about that. So, but that's cool. That's great.
Yeah, and we're continuing on now. I just completed my sophomore release, as I mentioned a little earlier, Sweet Lou's Blues, dedicated to Sweet Papa Lou Donaldson, as the title cut indicates, where I was fortunate enough to meet some really, really great players out of New York. Met and my producer on this, co-producer on this is Antonio Shaka, who's a former music director for Wynton Marsalis. Met some great players.
That's not too bad.
Not shabby at all.
Not shabby at all. That's great. That's
some of the
wonderful.
other great players, Jeremy Pelt, great trumpet player. Tevon Pentecott, who's an outstanding saxophonist. Mike Karn, great bass player, used to play with Ray Charles. And Jerome Jennings on drums, who's played with Ernestine Anderson, Sonny Rollins. So this latest project, I really feel great about it. I'm really glad that we've done all the work, and now it's time for the marketing machine to kick in.
All right. That's it. Well, I told you guys we're going to have a special on the 23rd of December, so you ought to come on back then.
Absolutely.
And more about that later, folks. For your book, we can go to themagnificentbody.com.
You go to carlpowell.com, or you can get it on Amazon. Both of my books are on Amazon.
Okay.
So if you want one in time for Christmas, Amazon ships them really quickly.
Here he goes, that plug again. And I guess Sweet Lou can be found.
Absolutely, at sweetluumusic.com. It's SWEETLU music.com.
There you go. My guys.
All right.
Thank you. Good seeing you.
Always great to see you.
It is fitness expert, motivational speaker, and author Carl Powell. His book again, Recipes for Magnificent Living, Friends, Food, and Philosophy. Highly recommended. And his other one, of course, is 21 Steps to Magnificent Livings. Go to his website, carlpowell.com. And Lou is Sweet Lou, and that's L-U. Lou Olatosin. Thank you very much. Both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Tomorrow, award-winning actress, singer, writer, and director Rosario Dawson. She'll chat about her new film with Chris Rock. It is called Top 5, plus 3-time Tour de France champion Greg LeMond and Dr. Mark Hum, and with their book, The Science of Fitness. Thank you all for joining us today. You've been listening to The Maggie Linton Show.
You ain't seen